Welcome to the overview of the Goat Genetic Improvement webinar series. This webinar series took place on July 20th, 22nd, 27th, and 29th of 2021. This is the recording or a brief overview of the recordings that you can find in the YouTube channel here in the description below on this video or in the cards that are going to pop up throughout the video. I'm Marlene Paibomesai, a dairy specialist with Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs.
And I'm Erin Massender, a small ruminant specialist with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs.
So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of genetic improvement. So genetic improvement is a long-term goal and offers long-term solutions. Some advantage of focusing on genetic improvement is that it can impact the industry and farm level profitability and competitiveness, as was with the discussion of the cost of production on goat farming. Included in this as well is being able to be adaptable to environmental impact, public perception, and adaptability to future market demands. The first presentation that you would find in this webinar series is called Keeper Cull, Strategies for Replacement and Culling Decisions. So this presentation is by Erin and myself, where we discuss selection and culling decisions and how they're made to improve overall population performance over time. The factors that impact the rate of genetic progress include selection intensity, as well as accuracy, genetic variation, genetic intervals, and the number of traits. And in this presentation, you will find information about some of those aspects. Maintaining genetic diversity and limiting inbreeding that can be achieved by purchasing new buck and doe genetics. An important aspect of this is to consider biosecurity, and this is also discussed in this presentation where we try to offer some suggestions on that side. We also have voluntary and involuntary culling that can impact the number of replacements that we're purchasing and keeping from year to year. And then overall, when we're looking at this breeding program, we need to consider making goals. Breeding goals are very important to be able to make sure that you're making changes over time that are benefiting your operation. So the important part of this is to have these goals to be SMART, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. One important aspect of all of this is to be able to go back and evaluate what you've done and if it's helping you achieve your goals. The second presentation that was in this webinar series was focused on Scrapie and goat genetics in Canada. We had Dr. Amanda Amaratanga from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency who talked about Scrapies here in Canada. The overall goal that Canada put out there is that they're looking to have the eradication of Scrapie, but this is going to be really dependent on improving the surveillance program within the country. Current science suggests that CFIA is going to recommend focusing on alleles K222 and S146, which can help confer Scrapie resistance in goats. CFIA is looking at conducting a pilot project in order to better understand how genetic resistance can be used in herds in the control of Scrapies in the country. And it's recommended for goat producers to identify their goats, submit any mature, dead, or slaughtered goats for Scrapie testing, reduce inbreeding within the herd, select for Scrapie resistance, and also buy from Scrapie flock certified.
Next, we had Adam Black from Ag Sites with a presentation called Raising Goats Smarter, Not Harder. And some of Adam's take-home messages included that you cannot manage what you do not measure. So keeping records on the farm is very important. It's also important to know your market and the information needed to make buying decisions, as this might impact your final product that you're producing for consumers. Choose a record-keeping solution that fits into your daily routine and that you are comfortable with. So don't necessarily choose a software program if you don't like using your phone or computer. In order for record-keeping to be successful, it has to be easy or you won't stick with it. Next, I presented on some of the research at the University of Guelph aimed at the implementation of genomic selection for dairy goats in a presentation called Accelerating Goat Genetic Improvement with Genomic Selection. Genomic selection uses small differences in the DNA of individual animals in order to more accurately predict genetic merit of young breeding candidates. It has been proven to rapidly accelerate gain and enable selection for difficult to measure traits such as carcass or feed efficiency in many different countries and species. Genotyping costs have decreased significantly in recent years, making it a more feasible selection tool. Today, it costs under $40 to genotype an animal. Substantial gains in accuracy are expected from the implementation of genomic selection for Canadian Alpine and Saanen breeds, especially for does without records and bucks without daughter records, so our breeding candidates, which will help to accelerate genetic improvement in these populations. Next, Brian Sullivan from the Canadian Centre for Swine Improvement presented about the Canadian Dairy Goat Genetic Improvement Program. Brian explained that genetic improvement can reduce costs and increase revenue on the farm, and that's why we should be concerned about the genetics in our herd. National genetic evaluations for dairy goats are provided through the Canadian Dairy Goat Genetic Improvement Program, and they can be accessed at goatgenetics.ca. Information on the data recording programs that contribute to the Dairy Goat Genetic Improvement Program are available from the Canadian Goat Society at goats.ca. Finally, Kayla McLeod, who is a classifier with the Canadian Goat Society, presented an introduction to the Canadian Goat Society classification program. The purpose of classification is to assess an individual animal's structure according to the ideals of a dairy animal. The traits being assessed translate into identifying productive and sturdy animals that will have a good longevity in your herd. Classification can be used as both a selection and culling tool, and this will allow us to increase the productivity and longevity in the herd. Thank you for listening to the summary of the Goat Genetic Improvement webinar series. Please click the description links or the cards within the presentation to go to the full recordings for each presentation. Marlene and I can be reached either by email or phone if you have any questions or would like to know more about goat genetic improvement. Thank you for your time.